there, my name is Sheila Beck and the Rabbi from another planet. Please like, share and subscribe and ring that little bell so you are notified when new videos drop. And it is Sunday, which means yesterday was Saturday. It's I guess you could have worked that out for yourself. You didn't need to tune in to find that. But yesterday was Saturday, which means I was offline most of the day. I'm a rabbi. It says in the channel, the Rabbi from another planet. I am a real rabbi, which means I'm offline from Friday night, from when the sun goes down about 6-7 o'clock this time of year, until Saturday night. There's 25 hours later, about 7-8 o'clock. About 7:45 is when it ends. So that means when the Sabbath ends, everybody rushes for their phones and they're very excited to find out what's been going on in the world. They hold their phones shaking in their hands to see the revelations. I, of course, go to Doctor Who and Geeky News first, because that's me. And I was surprised this week to find a lot of people very, very, very upset and disappointed and felt betrayed by Stephen Moffat. They feel that Stephen Moffat has thrown his complete weight of support behind Chris Chibnall, behind the revelation of the Timeless Children, which was somewhat disheartening. Now, the reason that was disheartening was because he seemed to be throwing some significant shade at it very, very, very recently. So, as we all know, we've been watching these Doctor Who watch-alongs, which have been freaking glorious. I've just been so happy about them. I was a bit dubious at first, but now I really enjoyed it. I watched the Doctor's Wife last night, and again, tons of fun. It's the worst thing in the world that could happen for the current production to be able to see these really good, fun, enjoyable episodes of Doctor Who, because then they might come and forget how awful the current production is and come and watch it and go, ew, I don't want to see it, which I think has basically happened en masse. So I think that what's going on is actually really, really good news for people, of our persuasion here in the fandom men's. I think it's particularly good news. I think it means that we are this multinational billion-dollar corporation is directly answering unpaid losers such as myself, sitting in basements, screaming into their computers with zero money going to production whatsoever, and they're using their entire media machines to try and directly answer me, which is, I found it just a little bit bizarre, Like, listen, I understand in my head I am the center of the universe and everything should revolve around me. I also understand that's probably not true. So when Radio Times publishes articles directly answering me, I kind of get the feeling that I'm more important than I am. So don't do that. It's not good for me. Not good for me. You know what would be good for me, though? If you can hit the subscribe button. Yeah, I'm at 750 subscribers. Get me up to 1,000. That'll be fan-dabby-dozy. Thank you so much. I want to show you my support. My appreciation for your support. Firstly, you know what you get just for wandering in? A free Doctor Who audio adventure. You can just go to the video notes, and there is a download link for a Doctor Who story starring Nicholas Briggs as a Doctor, made in the mid-80s. There was a fan group called Audio Visuals that went on to become Big Finish. So this story is called Geopath. It's a standalone story. A lot of fun. Well, a lot of fun. It's actually not fun. It's more of an interesting story. I like this one, so go check it out. But also, I like to give away stuff. You like stuff. I like stuff. Everybody likes stuff. So the stuff I'm giving away this week is not one, but 2 Doctor Who DVDs. The first one being the Black Orchid. I was just going to give this one away on its own, but it's a 2-episode story. It seemed a bit light to me. I'll tell you a bit of Yiddish, a bit schwach. So they're a little bit schwach. There you go. So Yiddish was the language. It's kind of a mixture of German and Hebrew that the Jews spoke in Europe before they killed us all. That language has pretty much gone, by the way. But schwach is a very Yiddish is a very expressive language. So the other story I'm giving away, along with that, is For to Doomsday from the same season, I think the 82 season. This was the first story that Davison recorded as a Doctor, and boy, did he just walk seamlessly into that role. So all you have to do to win it is subscribe to the channel, and then leave in the comments the hashtag celery. Hashtag celery. I'm doing the prize draw tonight, so you don't have long to get your entries in. You've got like 2 or 3 hours. I'm going to be on the TARDIS zone tonight. I think we're talking about World War III, the Chrysler Eklund episode. And so what time is it going to be? Like 8 o'clock UK time, I think. Sometime around there, maybe 9. I don't remember. Whenever it is, you'll find it. That's when I'm doing the giveaway. And I give away stuff every week, so keep coming back. We'll be giving away a new prize next week. What's the next prize next week? Ooh, I might do the Indiana Jones trilogy. That's a pretty good trilogy. Or maybe Mission Impossible. We've got a box set of those. Who knows? We will find out tonight when I choose something fun. Fine. So it did seem that Stephen Moffat was throwing significant shade at Chris Chibnall and the current era. He put out this little scene with what's his name, the guy who plays Strax. Oh, Dan Starkey. By the way, quick plug. Big Finish has a book on tape. They not a full cast audio, no, but a book on tape which is really good of the Karnaki short stories. These are like spooky short stories from the 1930s, performed by Daniel Starkey. Dan Starkey. Freaking awesome! I really recommend that. If you're looking for something to do, I think it's probably cheap on download. I really recommend it. It's a really great release. I think they got a free one as well, so it's worth looking out for. Anyway, he did that little scene with Dan Starkey where they took the piss out of the current era, every night. But that could have been like just simple joke, a little light-hearted ribbing. I think he might have got in trouble for it. But something else I think he might have got in trouble for was Moffat live tweeted during the Day of the Doctor watch along. But curiously, the BBC was it Radio Times and Big Finish both linked to a temporary account that Moffat set up, which was had his name spelt wrong, but was throwing significant shade at Chibnall and the TARDIS children, really taking the piss out of it. So what I think was going on, you can go check back, see my video on it. What I think was going on there is Moffat really was throwing shade at it, and he was at the current era, and he was doing it with this account that gave him plausible deniability, but maybe not plausible enough, because I think he got himself in quite a bit of trouble. Now, what's it like being in trouble with the BBC? Well, ask Christopher Eccleston, who royally honked off the BBC by not doing at least a second series of Doctor Who, and leaving. And so what was the result for that? He was forced to leave England. He couldn't find employment within England. And he was forced to go into all these movies that he absolutely hated. You look at his expression in any frame during Thor 2, and he's one step away from putting a gun in his mouth. He was like, I can't believe my life has come to this. And also, G.I. Joe, the second one, he was like, ah! But, he's a man who likes to work. He's a working man. And it's like, I'm a working man, I'm going to work, But he had to leave the freaking country to do it. And this is because Christopher Eccleston, a very popular and bankable actor. So, honking off the BBC may not be that you want to do if you want to have a career in media, in the entertainment media based in the UK. So, so I believe the BBC are both petty and vengeful, and I think if I could work out that Moffat was throwing shade at Chibnall, I think they did too, or maybe I might have tipped them off because of a series of articles that have been in Radio Times, and I think damage control that Moffat has had to do. Now, why did he have to do it? Because for two reasons. One, honking off the BBC makes him makes his major employer reject him. Makes him unemployable. Makes it so he can't earn a living. That's pretty bad. And you might think, well, Moffat is so bankable. Eccleston was so bankable. That's the first part of the problem. The second part of the problem is that Chibnall has injected all this identity politics into Doctor Who, which by him is seen to be a good thing, and by him and his bubble that he lives in, that Twitterati, that blue checkmark Twitter sphere. They love the it's so stunning and so brave. You cast the first female Doctor. Oh, so stunning. They're not so mad, and they're not so upset that they cast the first female Doctor and then played her to be an absolute idiot for 2 years. But that didn't. But all they wanted was her name on the marquee, and that's what they got. And so he's protected. He's very protected. And so if you publicly come out against him, you are going to not get work. You're going to make yourself into a pariah amongst these blue checkmark Twitterati insane people that completely occupy and dominate the entertainment media industry. So I think it's just not viable for him to openly throw shade at Chibnall. So my first thought was, maybe Moffat is leading a revolution. Maybe he's mounting a coup to wrestle it out of the hands of Christian, which I really hope to be the case. To which the BBC and their massive media department answered me personally with an article in the Radio Times on April 9th, him saying, "No, I have no plans whatsoever to write an episode. Not me." Now that was part 2 of his damage control. What's the word? Campaign. Part 1 was he actually wrote a 12th Doctor story, which was pretty darn good. But he couldn't really bring himself to write an actual 13th Doctor story because, he wrote a 13th. If I said 12th, I meant to say 13th. He couldn't actually bring himself to actually write a 13th Doctor story. He wrote the 13th Doctor as a fictional character, in which I believe he was saying that, look, yeah, this is all going to be retconned out of existence sooner or later. If Doctor Who survived this, it's going to be retconned out of existence sooner or later. So you got to remember as well that Chibnall holds all the cards right now. If you look at the American comic book industry as a template for what's happening and what's going to happen, the American comic book industry, the direct market it's called, imploded within 4 days of this pandemic. And the reason it imploded is because they whittled down their sizable margins to the absolute bare minimum. So they were the razor thin, and it just took one thing happening that they weren't expecting to knock out the industry altogether. And that's exactly what happened. There's no stores to sell them. There's no stores to sell the comic books in, and there's no distribution company to distribute them because the margins were so thin. The reason the margins got whittled down to be so thin was exactly the same thing as happened in Doctor Who. They produced comic books that repelled the audience, that the audience hated, and they ran away. And this is, again, exactly like with Doctor Who. So, if Doctor Who survives this, which it might well do, because, HBO Max might survive this, and that Chinese media company, I don't know, might survive. And as long as they survive it, this current iteration of Doctor Who is going to survive. Plus, again, it's supported by people. Their complete management structure at the BBC has no diversity in it whatsoever, and they like they're propagating these really hateful messages. So Stephen Moffat, I think, was forced to bend the knee to go on a campaign, a tour, to find somewhere supporting the series, the current series, without compromising himself too much, which pretty much he managed to. And now the reason this video is being made on Friday the 10th, he came out with another article which we're going to look at right now and read it together. So this is by Hugh Fullerton. That's it. If you ever see the name Hugh Fullerton, just read shill. He is a massive shill, and he is always looking to shill. You don't look for an honest arbiter of opinion. I believe him not just to be an economic shill, but also an ideological shill who very, very much are on board with this terrible Doctor Who, because it ticks the right diversity boxes, which again I actually find deeply racist. But that's a discussion for another gazillion videos. Fine. So let's see what it had to say. So by the way, the other thing is somebody else was also forced to make a very similar statement recently. I won't go into who it is. He's somebody involved in Doctor Who across different media, and this person told me personally that he had a representative of BBC marketing right next to him at the time, and his livelihood was in serious peril had he said the wrong thing. So and he said things which were true, and that seems to support the current series, but didn't really, which is what I think is exactly going on here. I'm pretty sure that Moffat had a BBC, a BBC propaganda agent gun to his head, as he said, figuratively to his head, as he said this. So let's see what the incredible shill Hugh Fullerton had to say. And again, if anybody out there is of the same outlook as me and feels disheartened by this, you should feel the exact opposite. The exact opposite! Because that means they're terrified. And, I have to say, before we get into this, as an aside, that, all the spin in the world won't help. All the spin in the world will not help the cratering popularity of Doctor Who. It won't shear it up. All it will do is get it into production and get it onto screens. Once they get onto screens, it's naked. It's defenseless. It can't be protected by the blue checkmark shills because the viewing public see it and they reject it wholeheartedly. I do not think the ratings are not going to keep on tumbling down, even though they're at the lowest they've been for years, for decades and decades. Certainly since the revival, even though it's like virtually at the cratering popularity. It's like the comic books were about a month ago, where it was razor thin margins, just razor thin, just enough to make it viable. It's not going to take much to knock it down to make it unviable, and we'll see. And you can see that happens real quick. Again, just like the comic book industry. Right. Oh, by the way, and also the movie industry is equally feeling significant pinch. AMC cinemas filed for Chapter 11. If they're not bought out, that's a big problem for the movie industry because their vendors are gone. You can't sell your product if you have nowhere to sell them. And, it's not going to take much. Fine, so let's read this article. Doctor Who, Series 12, the finale, The Timeless Children, was absolutely full of shocking revelations for Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. No, she wasn't shocked about anything. You know reason why Jodie Whittaker wasn't shocked about anything? Because it takes caring about something to be shocked about something. Jodie Whittaker couldn't care less about Doctor Who. You can tell from her performance, she sees it as a silly children's character that she's enjoying getting plaudits for playing, but she has no real belief in the character, and certainly no respect or liking for it. Most notably, the twist that the Doctor had a whole series of lives we hadn't previously known about. So, okay, for me, it didn't really bother me because I know this is going to be retconned out of existence. If Doctor Who is going to exist, this has to be retconned out of existence. And Doctor Who is going to exist. This is what I can see if the current pandemic doesn't cause HBO or the Chinese media company to pull out, then we're just going to keep on seeing diminished returns, diminished ratings until it becomes not viable to make anymore. That's it, and then one day it will come back. That's been my ongoing theme for all these videos about it. Fine. Despite a similar idea being posited in a classic Tom Baker episode, The Brain of Morbius, bollocks, absolute BS. It's not a similar idea. You know what makes The Brain of Morbius and Lung Barrow different from this? Brain of Morbius and Lung Barrow didn't have massive plot holes built into it that it was never answered, and didn't insert massive plot holes into the entirety of Doctor Who, whereas The Timeless Children did. If you can find me somewhere in Classic Doctor Who that did insert massive plot holes within the entirety of Doctor Who and had massive plot holes in of itself, you'll have a fair comparison. You don't have that, so you have no comparison. And this is the sound of you grasping at straws. So with the Morbius Doctors apparently confirmed in the final, no, they weren't. Utter nonsense. What would you expect from this shill Fullerton? It's fair to say the idea was fairly controversial with fans. Really? You said it was the most beloved thing ever. You said it was the greatest thing ever, and everyone is loving it. So now it's controversial? Yeah, because it is controversial. When you say controversial, it means almost universally hated by any. Now, the arbiter of if you're going to hate it or not, is how much you agree with the identity politics they inject into it constantly. If you really agree with it, you can overlook pretty much anything, as we've seen. If you don't, if you're like somewhat agree with it and you love Doctor Who more than identity politics, which I think most fans are in, you're gonna reject this. And if you're like me, who hates the identity politics, and I got no reason to overlook all the plot holes, so I just can't stand it. Fine, but ex-showrunner Stephen Moffat doesn't agree, telling Radio Times he thinks it fits perfectly with the series' inconsistent past. Bullshit. What is canon? Moffat told us. One episode the show says that William Hartnell is the first Doctor. Another episode says it's not. All factual. All things I think he can get behind and remain somewhat honest and true to himself. Notably explained in the early episodes, fans could read between the lines. Okay, there's no reading between the lines in The Timeless Children. It was on the nose as on the nose can be. to believe that Patrick Troughton's second Doctor was familiar with the regeneration process. Actually, they called it rejuvenation process. The way the production team viewed it at the time is the Doctor shed several hundred years and became a younger version of himself. It wasn't regeneration; it was rejuvenation. But okay, so listen. So if you're going to use a point to try and show yourself up, at least try and understand the freaking point. Despite later stories suggesting it was only his second body he'd ever changed to. The big plot hole that no one ever mentions is the 1960 episode, The Power of the Daleks, just to get nerdy, he said. The Doctor talks as if he's done this before. Okay, that's fair. The first time, yeah, okay. But again, we've established within Doctor Who that this was Patrick Troughton was his second body. Okay, I understand that things that aren't clearly stated can be changed and looked at from different ways. Things that are clearly stated you have a much harder problem getting around. All that mental gymnastics to try and work out unit dating because of Mordor and Undead, for example. But we get around it anyway, and we reject things that don't work because we just do, And it's all the spin in the world isn't going to change anything when they put this garbage on screen again, and the ratings continue to fall, and the popularity continues to crater. So you can keep it up as much as you like, or you're just extending your own humiliation and your own agony. You're talking to him, and he wanders around that first episode behaving as oh, my old body wore out, I got a new one. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And also, it's that's what also 10th Planet, I think, supports as well. He doesn't behave as his first time, and later on it's retconned into the idea that it was first time, but that doesn't fit. Fair enough. That's fair. But again, there's a question of it not fitting by things that aren't mentioned openly and inferred, and things that are mentioned openly and are not inferred, that are completely on the nose, which is the difference here. Doctor Who never fits. Yeah, we can't make it fit unless you're an utterly an utter idiot and you don't know what you're doing. Chris Chibnall, it could be the person I might be talking about there. He laughs. He laughs. None of it. He laughs as the BBC rep holds a gun to his head. None of it fits together. If you really look at it, why would it? It's made by teams and teams of different people who never met. So I'm perfectly happy with all that. It's great fun. Previously, Moffat told Radio Times that he'd been disappointed by the Morbius Doctor's removal as canon as a child. It was never removed. It was never accepted. It was a bit of fluff, a bit of fun. Frickin' morons grasping at straws. So he was happy to see them reinstated. So was he happy to see them reinstated in the time series? They weren't reinstated. Again, wasn't openly reinstated. They were not reinstated. They were explained in one direction. If you accept this utter bilge, which we don't, I think we can say the majority of fans do not accept this. And the reason I don't accept it, again, massive plot holes within the Essential the Cybermen and Timeless Children, massive plot holes, it then injects into the entirety of Doctor Who. Both Lung Barrow, go see my video about that, and the Morbius Doctors, I can't believe you're using that, neither of them do either of those things. Again, the unit dating does inject some continuity errors into Doctor Who, which you can retcon, but they're not as fundamental as the nature of what the Doctor is. Well, it turns out that actually a bit of a clue that Moffat knew what Whittaker's Doctor was about to find out. He said, "I'm not daft. I don't believe you are." I guess that I guess where I was going at that stage. Yeah, we all knew. Everybody knew. The Reddit spoilers were everywhere for the entire season. Moffat laughed. Even by then, I figured they were going to do something with that. I'm not sure I ever completely decanonized them in my head. I mean, who says? I don't think he said anything quite so supportive as many of my friends on YouTube. And I call them real genuine friends on YouTube. Think they are. I really don't think this is as supportive as I think it is, and I think it's actually shows they're in a much more difficult position than they want to pretend they're in. I'm not sure that clearly when it comes to Doctor Who, there are better discussions we had whether something fits in. Oh, well, no, not really. Fits within the often contradictory canon. Again, not really. And I understand why you don't want us to have this discussion, but we're having it anyway because you've got the idiotic articles like this, Hugh. Like, for example, Moffat's latest short story is technically a Doctor Who story at all. No, it's not a Doctor Who story at all. And then they give you a link to his short story. So again, I think this is just speaks of utter desperation, speaks of sheer terror. Speaks of sheer terror because the audience has rejected Doctor Who. The fan audience has rejected this Doctor Who, and the general audience has rejected this Doctor Who, and they want you to forget that. They think that by having this disinformation campaign, the fan audience will re-embrace Doctor Who, re-embrace this production of Doctor Who, and because the fan audience does, the general audience does. Neither are going to do that. Neither are going to do that because the fan audience don't like how you've really removed all stakes from this production, and the general audience because it's a dour, boring show. That and you've tried your best in season 12. You tried your best, your absolute best to make it exciting. And look, hats off to you. You did. You really did your best, but you're just not very good. You're not. Here's really the bottom line, Chris. You're not very smart. You're not a smart guy. Because you left these massive plot holes in. Again, why was that barrier at the end of the universe for people to escape through a door to Gallifrey? Why did you have the Doctor stand by as the entirety of the human race was destroyed? Why did you insert this new character into Doctor Who, present her as a hero, actually then adopted and murdered a child over and over and over again? Why did you do all this stuff? Why? So you can be protected by the Twitterati. And you're so protected that Stephen Moffat made a few jokes at your expense, and you sent him on a what's the word, on a repentance campaign, on a repentance tour, which this is. I wonder if that repentance tour is over. Listen, I can't imagine he wants any more out of him than this. But who the hell knows? But bottom line is, the biggest problem Doctor Who has, this production of Doctor Who has, is this production of Doctor Who. Once they put it on screen, it's naked, it's defenseless, and as that, it will implode and continue to implode. My question to BBC is: carry on as much as you want. I'm happy to keep on with the classic Doctor Who. I'm happy to keep on with Big Finish. In my head, I decanonize this entire era as it's exactly going to happen as soon as a new production team comes on. As soon as you want Doctor Who to be profitable, to be a marketable property, just change the production team to somebody who will do it. But you're not going to do that while you can get by with your razor thin margins. And they raise thin margins which you whittled down to absolutely nothing. And again, we saw with the comic book industry where that leads you. That's where you're going. My name is Svila Becken, the Rabbi from Another Planet. Please like, share, subscribe, and ring the little bell so you're notified when these new videos drop.